The 23-year-old queen ordered the human's capture, but he walked into her throne room willingly. Hovering transports hummed softly as they carried citizens from one part of the capital to another, gliding past terraces filled with exotic plants that shimmered with faint bioluminescence. It was a city of precision, order, and beauty, but beneath its sparkling surface, it was also a city of rules, regulations, and strict obedience. Queen Arelyn sat in her private chamber, a room high above the thrumming city streets. At only 23, she had already earned a reputation for being decisive, intelligent, and unyielding. The throne room had been her mother's, and before that her grandmother's, but Arelyn had brought a subtle touch of her personality into the space. Screens displaying the city's every movement lined the walls, and floating holograms provided live feeds from every corner of her empire. She watched as life below unfolded, perfectly synchronized, almost like a single living organism. And yet a small alert blinked on one of the monitors, disrupting the seamless flow of the day. "An intruder," her assistant said, stepping carefully into the room. "A human, Your Majesty. They report he has entered the system and is moving toward the capital." Arelyn raised an eyebrow, her eyes narrowing at the word human. Humans were rare in her part of the galaxy, and most of the ones she had encountered had been simple traders or explorers, curious but cautious. The idea of a human moving boldly into her city without permission unsettled her. "How close is he?" she asked, her voice calm but carrying a quiet intensity that demanded attention. "Approaching the inner sectors, Your Majesty." "He is unarmed, but witnesses claim his actions have been unusual," her assistant replied. There was a hint of awe in his voice, almost as if he were struggling to describe something extraordinary. Arelyn leaned forward, her fingers brushing the smooth surface of her desk. She had never underestimated humans. They were unpredictable, resilient, and despite their relative lack of technology compared to her civilization, they had a peculiar way of influencing the events around them. She had seen it before. Small actions, tiny decisions that led to outcomes even her most advanced predictive algorithms could not fully calculate. "Prepare the patrols," she said finally, her mind already racing through possibilities. "I want him captured before he reaches the throne room. Do not harm him unnecessarily. I wish to meet this human myself." Her assistant hesitated, unsure if that was wise. The human's reputation for thinking and acting differently made them unpredictable. But Arelyn's decision was absolute, and the assistant could only nod and leave, her order echoing in the high-ceilinged chamber. Meanwhile, somewhere in the outskirts of the capital, the human moved with a calm that seemed almost deliberate. His name was Ethan, and unlike most beings in the galaxy, he did not fear the immense, structured, and alien city around him. He had observed from afar, studied the behavior of the citizens and the patterns of patrols, and he knew exactly how he would proceed. Every step was careful, measured, and yet bold, an audacity that contrasted sharply with the rigid order surrounding him. Ethan did not carry weapons. He relied on observation, instinct, and the kind of adaptability humans seem to possess naturally. To an observer, his actions might appear reckless, but in reality, he was playing a game in which he had already studied every rule, even those not yet written. He moved through the streets, occasionally helping someone in need, directing a lost alien child back to safety, assisting an elder with a malfunctioning transport, calming small disturbances that might have escalated. Each act earned him quiet admiration, small whispers of curiosity and wonder spreading across the city's inhabitants. By the time news of his approach reached the inner sectors, some citizens were beginning to see him not as an intruder, but as a figure of intrigue. Soldiers on patrol, expecting confrontation, found themselves hesitant, unsure of how to respond to someone who walked toward authority rather than away from it. And Queen Arelyn watched all of it unfold from her observation room. She was fascinated. Her advisors had briefed her on countless intruders, spies, and criminals, and her first instinct had always been to suppress them with force or deception. But Ethan did not flee. He did not hide. He moved as if he belonged, his confidence radiating in a way that disrupted the normal calculations of risk and threat. "What drives him?" she asked aloud, though only to herself. Her eyes were fixed on the holographic feed. She watched as he paused to examine a small mechanism near a public plaza, adjusting it to function correctly, and then continued on his way. The act was simple, yet it displayed a type of intelligence that her people admired but often lacked, the ability to act independently and effectively without waiting for orders. Aerylyn's curiosity deepened. She had been trained to anticipate threats, to see patterns, and to respond quickly. But Ethan's behavior defied expectation. He did not fit any profile in her database. He was not aggressive, not timid, not erratic. He was something else entirely. And in that, he was dangerous in a way that neither weapons nor armies could counter. She called for her top strategist. "Observe him carefully. I want to know everything, his path, his choices, his reactions. But do not interfere unless absolutely necessary. I wish to understand him before any confrontation occurs." The strategist hesitated for a moment, then activated the detailed tracking protocols. Holograms shifted to show different angles, highlighting Ethan's movements with precise measurements. The strategist explained, "He appears to be anticipating obstacles before they arise, Your Majesty. Humans are known for this, but his calculations seem advanced even for his species." Aerylyn nodded slowly. She understood the implications. Humans were clever, but this human, Ethan, was exceptional. She realized that capturing him by conventional means might not work. He had already turned the simplest actions into opportunities, and she could not predict what he would do next. Ethan, meanwhile, moved through the city with purpose. He observed not only the patterns of soldiers and citizens, but also the infrastructure itself, transport schedules, security protocols, and even the subtle signals that indicated shifts in authority. Every decision he made was deliberate. When he reached a narrow passage guarded by 2 patrols, he did not fight. He smiled briefly, used a small, inconspicuous device to distract them, and walked past as if nothing had happened. Each successful step reinforced his confidence. He was aware of Queen Aerylyn's attention, aware that she had ordered his capture. And yet he did not feel fear. Humans, he knew, often thrived when others underestimated them. His species' strength lay not in raw power, but in the ability to adapt, to improvise, and to turn situations to their advantage. By mid-afternoon, the inner city was abuzz. Citizens spoke in hushed tones of the human who walked fearlessly through the streets, solving small problems wherever he went. Soldiers whispered about his boldness, noting that he seemed impossible to trap or intimidate. And high above them all in her chamber, Queen Aerylyn watched, a faint smile playing at the corners of her lips. For the first time in her short reign, she faced a situation that did not have a clear answer. A human had entered her city, and instead of hiding or fleeing, he advanced toward her with purpose. The usual strategies, deployment of forces, intimidation, even negotiation, felt inadequate. She realized that she was not simply dealing with an intruder. She was witnessing an intelligence that challenged the very assumptions of her civilization. As the sun began to dip, casting long shadows across the crystalline towers, Ethan paused atop a small bridge overlooking a plaza. From this vantage point, he could see the palace in the distance, its spires reaching toward the sky. He did not hesitate. The human instinct to move forward, to confront the unknown rather than avoid it, guided his steps. And with every stride, he demonstrated a truth that would soon become undeniable. Humans were not merely reactive. They were innovators, problem solvers, and risk takers in ways that could surprise even the most advanced species. Queen Aerlin studied him, her mind turning over every possible outcome. She had been trained to eliminate threats, but something in her assessment told her that this human was different. She considered recalling the patrols, but the strategist's voice echoed in her mind. He was exceptional, even among humans. She realized she might learn more by observing him than by attempting to stop him. The day faded into evening and the city lights flickered on, illuminating the streets with a soft, golden glow. Ethan's approach had been deliberate, his confidence steady. He had not attempted to flee, and he had not caused chaos. Instead, he had demonstrated intelligence, empathy, and adaptability in ways that the citizens and guards could not ignore. For Queen Aerlin, the realization was both unsettling and exhilarating. She had expected defiance, perhaps fear, but not this. A calm, composed human, walking willingly into the heart of her empire. And she knew that when he reached the palace, when he finally stood before her, the encounter would be unlike any she had ever experienced. The first part of their story was ending, but the greater story, the story of human ingenuity, courage, and unexpected impact, was only beginning. Ethan moved forward, each step a quiet declaration. Humans were not to be underestimated. And high above him, Queen Aerlin prepared herself, aware that she was about to witness something extraordinary, something that might forever change the way her civilization viewed the galaxy. Ethan moved through the inner sectors of the city, his steps deliberate but calm. The streets here were narrower, lined with elegant shops and terraces filled with glowing plants that seemed to hum softly. Hovering drones drifted above, scanning for disturbances, and every few steps, a patrol of soldiers would pass, eyes sharp and weapons ready. Yet despite the presence of authority, Ethan walked as if he belonged. He observed everything. The timing of the patrols, the speed of the drones, the patterns of the citizens moving about their day. Nothing was hidden from him. And yet, he did not act with fear or haste. Humans, he thought, excelled at turning the expectations of others against them. Here, in this perfectly ordered city, that ability was going to be useful. As he approached a plaza, he noticed a small crowd gathering around a malfunctioning transport pod. The pod's doors had jammed, trapping a young alien child inside. Panic was beginning to spread among the onlookers. Many citizens froze, unsure of what to do. The soldiers, trained to respond with caution and protocol, had paused as well, waiting for orders. Ethan knelt beside the pod, examining the mechanism. The technology was advanced, but not beyond human understanding. With careful adjustments and a small tool from his bag, he freed the child. The crowd erupted in relief, murmuring among themselves, amazed at the human's quick thinking. Some of the soldiers exchanged surprised glances, impressed by his calm competence. This small act did not go unnoticed. One of the drones hovered closer, its sensors capturing Ethan's movements. He looked up briefly, meeting the camera's gaze. There was no fear in his eyes, only focus and clarity. In that moment, he was not an intruder. He was someone capable of solutions that others had not considered. As he continued on his path, word of his action spread. Citizens whispered about the human who moved boldly through the city, helping others even as he approached the palace. Some of the younger guards shared tales of his previous encounters, impressed that a human could navigate the city so confidently. Rumors began to take on a life of their own, and soon, even those who had not seen him directly knew of his presence. Queen Aerlin watched from above. Her eyes followed him through multiple screens, each one showing a different angle of his journey. She had expected fear or desperation, yet he moved with calm determination, solving problems and observing the city with an almost uncanny understanding. Her mind raced. Humans were clever, yes, but this human, was exceptional. He did not merely move through the city, he influenced it, shaped it, and in subtle ways improved it. She called her strategist again, who had been monitoring every detail. "What do we know of him?" she asked. "He is unarmed, Your Majesty, yet his movements suggest a high level of intelligence. His actions influence both citizens and patrols in ways we cannot fully predict. He appears confident in the face of authority," the strategist explained, eyes wide with fascination. Queen Arelyn considered this carefully. Confidence alone was not dangerous. Humans often possessed it, but this human's combination of calm and capability suggested something more. She leaned forward, fingers resting lightly on the edge of the table. "Continue monitoring. I want to know his next steps. Prepare contingencies, but do not intervene unless absolutely necessary. I wish to meet him personally." Ethan, unaware of her direct attention, moved with purpose. His path was simple yet effective. He avoided heavily guarded areas, but not out of fear. He knew that confrontation would be unnecessary if he could act intelligently. Human ingenuity, after all, often lay in solving problems before they became obstacles. A narrow bridge spanned a canal filled with glowing water, the color shifting with the angle of the light. Two patrols blocked his way, weapons raised. Most beings would have hesitated, some fleeing, others attempting force. Ethan paused for a brief moment, observing the patrol's behavior. He noted the rhythm of their steps, the timing of their scans, and the subtle gestures they used to communicate. Then, with a quiet smile, he produced a small device and set it on the bridge. The device emitted a soft pulse, invisible to most but enough to distract the patrol's sensors. In the split second that followed, Ethan moved forward, gliding past them without confrontation. The soldiers, momentarily disoriented, were unsure of what had happened. They looked around, then continued their patrol, unaware that the human had passed right by them. Each step he took reinforced his confidence. Humans thrived in unpredictability. Where others saw obstacles, he saw opportunities. Where others hesitated, he moved forward. And in doing so, he left a trail of admiration, curiosity, and awe among those who witnessed him. As he approached a bustling marketplace, Ethan noticed a small group of merchants struggling with a collapsed stall. The structure had fallen onto the walkway, blocking passage for many citizens. Some guards began to intervene, but they moved cautiously, afraid of making mistakes. Ethan did not hesitate. With his strength and quick thinking, he lifted the supports, stabilized the stall, and helped the merchants reposition their goods. The crowd around him clapped quietly, murmuring praises. Soldiers whispered among themselves, noting that humans seemed to possess an uncanny combination of resourcefulness and bravery. Even the drones captured the scene, sending the data to Queen Arelyn's observation room. Arelyn watched, leaning back slightly. She realized that his actions were not random. Every choice he made, every obstacle he overcame, demonstrated a level of intelligence and adaptability that her algorithms could not fully predict. Humans, she reflected, were extraordinary in their ability to turn chaos into opportunity, and this one was a master at it. Ethan continued, moving through the streets with deliberate calm. He paused occasionally to observe his surroundings, to notice the details that others overlooked. A small garden in a quiet courtyard, a malfunctioning water pump, a lost alien pet, each presented an opportunity for him to act, and each time he did so with precision and care. As evening approached, the city's lights began to glow, casting a soft golden hue over the crystalline towers. Ethan's journey was becoming a story in itself. Citizens spoke of the human who walked boldly through the city, solving problems, helping others, and moving closer to the palace with quiet determination. Soldiers and guards began to see him not as a threat, but as someone extraordinary, someone who challenged their understanding of what humans could do. High above, Queen Arelyn continued to observe. She felt a mixture of curiosity and caution. Her instincts told her that this human was not merely clever. He possessed a kind of intelligence that could not be contained or predicted. She considered deploying her elite forces, but something in her judgment told her that doing so might disrupt the natural flow of events. Instead, she chose to watch, to learn, and to prepare for the inevitable meeting. Ethan, unaware of her direct observation, moved with a steady confidence. He had noticed patterns in the city, understood the timing of patrols, and recognized opportunities to act without force. Every small intervention, every act of problem-solving, reinforced the idea that humans were not merely reactive. They were proactive, capable of influencing their environment in ways that others could not predict. As he reached the outskirts of the palace district, the streets grew wider, more ornate, and more heavily guarded. Yet he did not hesitate. Humans, he reflected, had always excelled in turning challenges into opportunities. The palace, the center of authority, was not a threat. It was a destination, a place where he could demonstrate his abilities and perhaps even influence the course of events in a civilization far more advanced than his own. Citizens along the route whispered and watched, some following from a distance. Guards exchanged glances, unsure of how to handle a human who advanced without fear, without aggression, and without hesitation. Ethan's presence was becoming a phenomenon, a story that spread quietly from person to person, capturing the imagination of all who witnessed it. Queen Arelyn leaned forward, her gaze fixed on the screen. She realized that the human's journey was more than a simple intrusion. It was a demonstration of human capability, intelligence, and resilience. And she understood, with a mixture of respect and caution, that when he reached the palace, the encounter would be unlike any she had ever experienced. As the sun set completely, casting long shadows across the city, Ethan paused briefly atop a small balcony overlooking the palace gates. He could see the spires rising high into the sky, a symbol of authority and order. He inhaled deeply, steadying himself for the next stage of his journey. Humans, he reflected, often thrived in situations where others expected fear or hesitation. His species' strength lay not in raw power, but in creativity, adaptability, and courage. With a final glance at the city below, Ethan stepped forward once more, moving toward the palace with quiet determination. Citizens watched, soldiers prepared, and high above, Queen Arelyn waited. The stage was set for a meeting that would challenge assumptions, defy expectations, and perhaps forever change the way her civilization viewed humans. Ethan's walk into the heart of the city had been deliberate, calculated, and bold. Each step had demonstrated human ingenuity, compassion, and courage. And now, as he approached the palace, it was clear that his journey was far from over. Humans, it seemed, were not merely survivors. They were innovators, problem solvers, and catalysts for change in ways even the most advanced civilizations could not fully anticipate. The palace loomed before Ethan, its spires catching the light of the twin moons, casting long, silver reflections across the streets below. Every detail of the structure radiated power and authority, a careful balance of elegance and strength. The gates were high, reinforced with energy shields and guarded by elite soldiers who had seen countless threats, yet none had ever approached so boldly or so calmly as the human walking toward them now. Ethan paused at the entrance, studying the layout. Guards moved in synchronized patterns, scanning for anomalies. Drones hovered above, projecting beams of light to detect movement. Most would have found the sheer scale of surveillance intimidating. Not him. He had always found that fear often came from uncertainty, and uncertainty could be removed with observation, patience, and small, deliberate actions. A group of guards stepped forward, blocking his path. "Halt," one commanded. "You are not permitted to enter without authorization." Ethan's voice was calm, steady. "I understand," he said, "but I have come to meet your leader. There is no conflict here. I only wish to speak." The soldiers exchanged nervous glances. It was unusual for anyone to approach so boldly, yet without weapons or aggression. After a moment, the lead guard stepped aside slightly, motioning for the others to hold their positions. "The Queen will decide whether you may enter," he said. Ethan nodded, walking forward with measured steps. His presence alone seemed to unsettle the rigid patterns the soldiers maintained. Where they expected fear or defiance, they found confidence. Where they anticipated hesitation, they saw clarity. Each step forward demonstrated an unfamiliar kind of strength, one not dependent on technology, weapons, or brute force. Inside the palace, Queen Arelyn waited. She stood in the central hall, elevated on her throne, a figure of youth, authority, and poise. Her eyes followed Ethan as he approached, analyzing every movement. She had never encountered a being quite like him, human, unarmed, yet radiating an air of control that rivaled even her most disciplined soldiers. As Ethan entered the grand hall, the murmurs of palace staff fell silent. He did not rush. He did not look around in awe. He walked with the steady assurance of someone who had faced challenges before, someone who knew how to navigate obstacles with intellect and courage. Each step seemed to carry a quiet message. Humans were not easily intimidated. Queen Arelyn's voice broke the silence. "You are the human who has walked through my city without fear." Ethan stopped a few meters from the throne. "Yes," he said simply. "And I have come to speak with you." Her eyebrows rose slightly. "You understand the danger you face. The laws of my empire do not tolerate uninvited visitors. Most would have fled, most would have attempted to hide, but you chose to come willingly." Ethan met her gaze steadily. "I understand the rules and I understand the risks, but I also know that humans are capable of actions that others may not expect. I wish to demonstrate that, rather than provoke conflict." Arelyn studied him carefully. Her advisors had told her to prepare for confrontation, for deception, for negotiation under duress. But Ethan's calm composure and measured words challenged every expectation. He did not seem like a threat in the traditional sense, yet his very presence demanded attention. She realized that intelligence and courage could be as compelling as any weapon. "Why do you come here?" she asked, her tone cautious but curious. "What do you hope to achieve?" Ethan's response was precise. "I come to understand and to offer knowledge. I have observed your civilization and the way it functions. I have seen the efficiency, the order, and the brilliance. But I have also seen the limitations, places where creativity, flexibility, and unconventional thinking could enhance what already exists." The Queen leaned back slightly. His words were audacious, yet they contained a subtle respect. He acknowledged her empire's achievements while hinting at the potential for improvement. Few beings could balance humility with insight in this way, and it intrigued her. "Your confidence is unusual," she said. "Many humans are cautious, fearful of power beyond their comprehension. You walk into my city, past guards, past drones, past patrols, and yet you speak as if you belong. Why should I not have you detained immediately?" Ethan smiled faintly. "Because humans are not merely reactive. We adapt, we observe, and we solve problems. I have shown that I can move through your city without causing harm, yet with awareness and understanding. My purpose is not to challenge your authority, but to demonstrate that there is a way for our species to interact, one that benefits both sides." Arelyn's curiosity deepened. She had studied human behavior, read reports from explorers and traders, and yet Ethan's demeanor defied all classifications. He was audacious but controlled, clever but considerate, fearless yet respectful. His presence suggested a kind of ingenuity that could not be measured with algorithms or protocols. "You expect me to trust a human who enters my palace uninvited?" she asked, a hint of amusement in her tone. "I do not ask for blind trust," he replied. "I only ask for an opportunity to demonstrate the value of understanding, cooperation, and problem-solving. Observe me, and you will see that humans can offer insights that complement, rather than threaten, your civilization." The hall fell silent for a moment. Staff and guards watched, unsure how to respond. The usual dynamics of authority and obedience had shifted. Here was a human, unarmed, speaking with logic, clarity, and courage, and yet not challenging her throne. His presence demanded consideration. Queen Arilyn rose slightly from her throne, her eyes locking onto his. You speak of understanding, of cooperation, but how do I know that your intentions are genuine? How do I know that you do not seek to manipulate or deceive? Ethan's gaze remained steady. Because I have walked through your city openly. I have solved problems that arise, aided your citizens, and avoided confrontation. If my intentions were deceitful, I would not have acted this way. Actions speak louder than words, and my actions have been consistent with the principles I describe. Arilyn considered this carefully. His words were simple, yet the logic was difficult to refute. He had chosen transparency, courage, and ingenuity over subterfuge. In doing so, he had earned a form of credibility that few beings in her experience could achieve so quickly. You have walked willingly into the heart of my empire, she said slowly. You have bypassed every safeguard, every protocol without causing harm. Yet your presence here changes the atmosphere of this hall. People watch you and wonder. Soldiers hesitate because of you. Even I find myself curious rather than hostile. Why? Ethan's answer was calm, almost philosophical. Because humans are unpredictable in ways that encourage others to think differently. We adapt to circumstances, solve problems creatively, and act in ways that defy expectation. Sometimes, that unpredictability is unsettling, but it is also valuable. It can inspire change, improve systems, and reveal possibilities that rigid thinking cannot. Queen Arilyn was quiet for a moment, absorbing his words. She realized that his presence in the palace was already a demonstration of the qualities he described: observation, adaptability, courage, and intelligence. Each had been displayed in the city streets, in the way he interacted with citizens and patrols, and now in the way he addressed her directly, without fear or arrogance. I see, she said finally. You claim to offer knowledge and insight. If that is true, then perhaps you deserve an opportunity to demonstrate it further. But be warned, my patience has limits and my curiosity is not unlimited. One mistake, one action against my laws, and you will face the full authority of my empire. Ethan nodded respectfully. I understand. I do not seek conflict. I seek understanding and cooperation. A subtle tension filled the hall, one that was neither hostile nor fearful, but charged with the potential for discovery. Queen Arilyn realized that this human, in his simplicity and composure, had already begun to challenge assumptions about the capabilities of his species. He was not merely surviving in her city. He was shaping the perceptions of everyone who observed him, including herself. Very well, she said, her voice firm but measured. I will allow you to remain. You will not be a guest and you will not be a prisoner. Instead, I will observe you, and we shall see whether your actions truly reflect your words. You may demonstrate your abilities in a controlled challenge, one that will test your intelligence, adaptability, and courage. Ethan inclined his head, acknowledging the terms. I accept. I am confident that my actions will speak for themselves. Queen Arilyn watched him closely, aware that this was a turning point. The human's calm, deliberate approach had forced her to reconsider her assumptions, her strategies, and even her understanding of intelligence. Humans, she realized, were remarkable in their ability to influence and inspire. Their strength was not measured in technology or armies, but in their adaptability, insight, and creativity. The decision to allow Ethan to remain was not made lightly. Yet she could not deny the truth. His presence in the palace, and the confidence with which he had arrived, was extraordinary. She anticipated that the challenge ahead would reveal much more, not only about him but about the potential of humanity itself. As the evening deepened, casting shadows across the hall, Ethan remained composed. He had reached the center of power without confrontation, without deception, and without fear. His journey had been deliberate, every step measured, every action considered. And now, standing before the Queen, he understood that his human traits, curiosity, adaptability, courage, and ingenuity, had earned him a rare opportunity. Queen Arelyn, seated once more on her throne, observed him carefully. She understood that this was not merely a meeting. It was the beginning of an interaction that could redefine how her civilization viewed humans, their abilities, and their potential. In Ethan, she saw qualities that her advanced algorithms and training had not accounted for: intuition, innovation, and the quiet power of confidence guided by intelligence. For the first time in her reign, she faced a being who challenged assumptions not with aggression, but with presence and thought. The stage was set for a test, one that would reveal whether humanity's unpredictable brilliance could truly complement, rather than threaten, her empire. Ethan took a small step forward, ready to face whatever challenge lay ahead. His journey had been deliberate, his actions measured, and his mind focused. He understood the significance of this moment, not as a confrontation, but as an opportunity to demonstrate the capabilities of his species in a way that no one in this hall, not even the Queen, could have anticipated. Queen Arelyn rose from her throne and motioned for Ethan to follow her through the vast corridors of the palace. The walls were made of polished crystal and metal, glowing faintly with embedded energy conduits. Statues of past rulers stood along the halls, silent witnesses to centuries of decisions, victories, and authority. Yet despite the weight of history pressing on the walls, Ethan walked with calm determination, each step steady, his eyes observing every detail. The Queen led him into a large chamber, one that was empty save for a few devices lining the walls. At first glance, the room seemed simple, almost austere, but its purpose became clear as Arelyn spoke. "This will be your trial," she said. "It is designed to test intelligence, adaptability, and courage. You will face situations that may seem impossible to navigate. How you respond will determine the future of your stay here, and perhaps the future of our interactions." Ethan nodded. "I understand," he said. "I am ready." The Queen gave a small nod and gestured toward the center of the room. A platform descended from the ceiling, its surface shimmering with holographic displays. Images of complex machinery, alien architecture, and unpredictable environments appeared, forming a dynamic simulation. Soldiers and advisors observed silently from behind a protective shield, ensuring the trial would remain safe, yet challenging. The first scenario began. Ethan found himself standing in a dense urban landscape, unfamiliar but visually detailed. Holographic citizens moved through the streets, while drones hovered above, scanning for disturbances. A simulated energy conduit sparked dangerously nearby, threatening to block his path. Immediately, Ethan's mind began analyzing the situation. He noticed the behavior of the drones, their scanning patterns, and the timing of the hazards around him. He moved carefully, placing small energy stabilizers from his bag near the sparking conduit, rerouting the flow safely. The holographic citizens moved past unharmed, and the environment responded dynamically, adjusting to his actions. Queen Arelyn observed, her eyes narrowing slightly. Most beings would have frozen or attempted a brute force solution, but Ethan assessed, adapted, and acted without hesitation. Every decision was calculated, yet flexible, anticipating variables the simulation introduced without warning. The next scenario shifted suddenly. The urban environment dissolved into a jungle dense with glowing flora that reacted to movement. Alien creatures, some harmless, others aggressive, appeared in his path. Sensors indicated that he must reach a central objective without harming the creatures or damaging the environment. Ethan paused for a moment, analyzing the creature's behaviors. Some moved predictably, following patterns he could anticipate. Others reacted to sound and motion. He remembered basic principles of movement, timing, and observation, and began to navigate through the jungle. When a small creature blocked a narrow path, he gently guided it aside, moving carefully to avoid triggering panic among the others. He used a combination of agility and insight, human intuition guiding him through the simulation. Queen Arlen's eyebrows rose slightly. Her data suggested that many species could adapt to controlled environments, but none so far had demonstrated the level of foresight and empathy that Ethan displayed. He was not merely reacting. He was thinking ahead, predicting consequences, and adjusting in real time. The third scenario appeared without warning. A complex puzzle unfolded before him, a lattice of energy beams blocking multiple pathways, each beam activating alarms if touched. Ethan examined the pattern, noticing subtle timing sequences and hidden gaps. Most beings might have panicked, attempting random movement or forceful manipulation. He, however, paused to analyze the mechanics. With careful steps and precise timing, he maneuvered through the lattice, disabling energy nodes at critical points to create safe passage. The challenge required patience, observation, and ingenuity. Every move he made demonstrated a combination of human logic, spatial awareness, and adaptability. Queen Arlen's advisors whispered among themselves, impressed that a human could navigate such a complex system so effectively. The final scenario combined elements from all previous trials. Urban hazards, environmental obstacles, and strategic puzzles appeared simultaneously. The holographic simulation adapted dynamically, increasing difficulty as Ethan progressed. It was designed to test not only intellect, but creativity under pressure, and the human was about to prove why his species was remarkable. Ethan moved forward, observing patterns and anticipating the simulation's responses. When drones swarmed unexpectedly, he used environmental features as cover, guiding himself through shadows and reflective surfaces. When alien creatures appeared, he noted their tendencies and diverted them without harm. When energy hazards blocked pathways, he manipulated them with tools and quick thinking, creating safe routes for himself and the simulated citizens. Queen Arlen watched with growing astonishment. She had expected competence, perhaps, but not ingenuity of this caliber. Humans were resilient, yes, but they were often underestimated in their ability to integrate empathy, strategy, and problem-solving into complex scenarios. Ethan's performance was demonstrating a rare brilliance, one that her civilization had not fully accounted for. The simulation introduced a sudden twist. The central objective began moving unpredictably, shifting locations at random intervals. Most participants would have hesitated, recalculating each movement and losing precious time. Ethan, however, adjusted instinctively. He anticipated the changes, calculated trajectories, and moved swiftly but carefully, reaching the objective efficiently without causing disruptions. The chamber was silent for a long moment as the simulation ended. Holographic projections dissolved, leaving the room quiet except for the soft hum of the palace energy systems. Queen Arlen leaned forward, her hands lightly gripping the edges of her throne platform. She had seen many beings attempt challenges, but none had displayed adaptability, foresight, and intelligence in such a seamless combination. Ethan stood in the center of the chamber, breathing calmly but alert. The trial had been difficult, yet he had not faltered. Each scenario had been an opportunity to demonstrate human capability, intelligence, problem-solving, adaptability, and courage. He had not relied on technology alone. He had relied on his mind, his observation skills, and his ability to understand patterns. The Queen spoke first, her voice calm but tinged with amazement. "You have surpassed every expectation," she said. Your actions were precise, calculated, and yet flexible. You have demonstrated qualities that even my most advanced simulations did not predict. How did you navigate challenges that seemed designed to be impossible? Ethan smiled faintly. Humans excel in unpredictability and adaptability. We observe, learn, and adjust quickly. We solve problems by considering multiple solutions simultaneously, and we often succeed by turning obstacles into opportunities. That is how we navigate what others see as impossible. Erilyn studied him, absorbing his words. She realized that his confidence and calmness had been essential, but even more significant was his ability to integrate observation, logic, and empathy into every decision. Humans, she noted, were capable of influencing complex systems not by brute force, but by understanding, creativity, and insight. Your species is remarkable, she said quietly, and yet you are also unpredictable. That combination makes humans both fascinating and potentially dangerous. How can I know that your intentions are aligned with ours? Ethan's response was steady. Intentions are demonstrated through action. I have acted to solve problems, avoid harm, and navigate challenges with thoughtfulness. My goal is understanding and cooperation, not conflict. That is how humans demonstrate their value. The Queen nodded slowly. She had studied many species, each with strengths and weaknesses, each with potential and limits. Yet Ethan's demonstration had revealed something rare, a species capable of independent, creative thought that could complement and advance civilization rather than threaten it. A moment of silence followed, filled with unspoken recognition. The chamber was no longer merely a test environment, it had become a stage for understanding human potential. Queen Erilyn understood that intelligence, adaptability, and courage were not limited to technology or rigid systems. They could emerge from individuals, from creativity, and from the willingness to engage with the unknown. Very well, she said finally. You have proven your intelligence, your adaptability, and your courage. You have navigated every challenge without deception, without aggression, and without causing harm. You have earned my respect and a rare opportunity. Ethan inclined his head slightly. Thank you, he said simply. I hope to continue demonstrating the value humans can bring, not just to your civilization, but in collaboration with it. Queen Erilyn regarded him carefully. Humans are unpredictable, yes, but also extraordinary. You have shown that even in unfamiliar circumstances, your species can solve problems, adapt, and inspire others. That is a rare gift. The human's calm presence and quiet competence had already begun to change the perceptions of everyone observing him. Soldiers, advisors, and citizens who had witnessed the trial recognized that humans were capable of ingenuity and courage that defied expectation. His performance in the challenge demonstrated that his species could not be underestimated, not for force, but for intelligence, strategy, and empathy. As the chamber emptied, leaving only Ethan and Queen Erilyn, she spoke once more. You have earned the right to remain in this palace, under observation, and to contribute your perspective. I wish to see what humans can achieve when given the opportunity to engage with our civilization fully. Ethan nodded, aware of the significance of her words. The trial had been more than a test. It had been a demonstration of human capability. He had shown that humans could navigate complexity, adapt to new challenges, and provide solutions in ways that complemented advanced systems. The Queen regarded him with a mixture of curiosity, respect, and anticipation. She understood that his potential went beyond this trial. Humans, she realized, were not merely reactive beings. They were innovators, capable of shaping outcomes in ways that even the most advanced civilizations might not predict. Ethan took a moment to look around the chamber, noting its design, the placement of controls, and the subtle ways the simulations had tested him. Every scenario had been a chance to demonstrate thoughtfulness, problem-solving, and human ingenuity. He had succeeded, not by force, but by intelligence, observation, and adaptability. Queen Aerlin's expression softened slightly. She recognized that in this human, she had encountered a being capable of bridging the gap between civilizations, not through conquest, but through insight, courage, and creativity. As the evening deepened, the trial concluded, leaving both the queen and the human with a shared understanding. Humans were extraordinary, not for their technology, but for their minds, their courage, and their ability to influence outcomes in unexpected ways. And in that understanding, the foundation for cooperation, and perhaps friendship, was being laid. The chamber was quiet, illuminated by soft golden light that reflected from the crystalline walls. Ethan stood near the center, steady and composed, while Queen Aerlin observed him from her throne, her expression thoughtful. The trial had ended, and in the silence that followed, both of them understood that this was more than a simple test. It was a turning point, a moment where two civilizations could begin to understand one another in ways neither had anticipated. Queen Aerlin rose, her movement graceful yet authoritative. "You have proven much," she said. "Your intelligence, adaptability, and courage surpass the expectations of my advisors, and I admit, my own as well. Yet one question remains. What is it that humans truly seek when they enter a foreign civilization so boldly?" Ethan met her gaze without hesitation. "Humans seek understanding and cooperation. We do not always act with force. Often, we rely on insight, creativity, and empathy. We seek to learn from others and to demonstrate that collaboration can create solutions that neither party could achieve alone." Her eyes softened slightly. She had studied diplomacy, strategy, and interstellar law extensively, but there was a simplicity and clarity in his words that cut through years of training. Humans had a way of reducing complexity to essentials without losing meaning, a quality that could both inspire and challenge those who relied on rigid rules. "Then let us begin with understanding," she said. "If you truly intend to cooperate, you must show not only your intelligence but your willingness to engage with the needs of my people." Ethan nodded. "I am ready." Queen Aerlin guided him to a high platform overlooking the city below. From this vantage point, the patterns of life were clear. Transport drones moved in synchronized arcs, citizens flowed like streams through the streets, and security forces patrolled diligently. Yet despite the precision Aerlin pointed out, there were areas that lacked efficiency or creativity, places where small adjustments could lead to significant improvements. "Observe," she said. "These are our systems. They function well, but they are rigid. Innovation is permitted, but only within the boundaries we define. Most beings follow protocol exactly. Few think beyond it." Ethan scanned the city thoughtfully. Patterns emerged in his mind. Intersections where traffic slowed due to predictable flows, energy grids with minor inefficiencies, communication networks that could be optimized with minimal adjustments. Yet he did not approach this as a critic. He saw it as an opportunity for collaboration. Humans, he knew, were valued not for criticism alone, but for the ability to enhance systems in practical ways. "I see several areas where small changes could have a large impact," he said. "For example, redirecting traffic flows slightly and adjusting timing in the energy grid could reduce congestion and improve efficiency without altering your current protocols significantly." Aerlin raised an eyebrow. "And how do you propose to demonstrate this without overstepping your bounds?" Ethan smiled faintly. "By proposing small pilot projects, solutions that can be tested without disrupting the city's daily operations. Humans excel in iterative problem-solving. Try, observe, adjust, and improve." The Queen considered this. She had always relied on structured, hierarchical approaches, but Ethan's method suggested flexibility without chaos, creativity without risk. Perhaps this was the type of perspective her civilization needed, an approach grounded in observation, innovation, and respect for existing systems. "Very well," she said. "We will allow you to implement one small project under supervision. It will serve as a demonstration of your approach and as a test of your ability to work within our systems." Ethan nodded, feeling a quiet sense of accomplishment. It was not a conquest, not a battle, not a display of power. It was an opportunity to collaborate, to show that humans could create solutions where others might see only limitations. The next few days were a flurry of observation, planning, and subtle intervention. Ethan studied traffic patterns, energy grids, and communication networks, speaking with engineers, soldiers, and citizens. He asked questions, listened carefully, and proposed incremental changes. His methods were simple yet effective: observation, analysis, and practical adjustments. Queen Arelyn watched closely, intrigued by how quickly his proposals led to visible improvements. Traffic moved more smoothly, energy consumption decreased slightly, and communication delays were minimized. Citizens noticed the changes, and whispers of admiration spread throughout the city. Even soldiers began to respect the human's methods, recognizing the subtle brilliance of his interventions. It was not magic. It was not overwhelming technology. It was human ingenuity in its purest form, careful, thoughtful, and adaptive. And as the city responded positively to his efforts, Queen Arelyn began to see the true value humans could bring to her civilization. "Your species is extraordinary," she said one evening, speaking to Ethan in the observation chamber. "You navigate challenges with insight, empathy, and creativity. You do not rely solely on force, yet your influence is undeniable. How do humans develop such capabilities?" Ethan considered this. "We face uncertainty often. Our survival has depended on observation, problem-solving, and collaboration. We learn from mistakes and successes alike. Flexibility and adaptation are not just tools, they are necessities. That is why humans can operate effectively even in situations that others might find impossible." Arelyn nodded slowly. She realized that she had underestimated the human approach, which was not about confrontation but about engagement and innovation. In Ethan, she saw a living example of what humans could achieve, a species capable of shaping environments, inspiring cooperation, and achieving remarkable outcomes without dominance. The Queen decided to formalize their collaboration. She called her advisors and soldiers together and explained that Ethan would serve as a liaison, a bridge between humans and her civilization. His role was not to command or enforce, but to observe, suggest, and demonstrate solutions. It was a bold decision, one that challenged traditional hierarchies, yet it reflected the recognition that human ingenuity could complement the Empire's strengths. Ethan accepted the position with humility and focus. His work continued, addressing small but impactful challenges throughout the city. He optimized logistical routes for transport drones, introduced adjustments to resource distribution, and provided guidance on emergency response protocols. Each success was subtle yet meaningful, improving efficiency, safety, and the quality of life for citizens. Over time, admiration for him grew. Soldiers respected his ability to think independently while remaining disciplined. Citizens appreciated his thoughtful interventions. Queen Arelyn observed that his presence not only solved problems, but also inspired others to consider new approaches, to think creatively, and to act with initiative. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the city, casting silver light across the towers, Arelyn and Ethan stood together on the palace balcony. The city below thrummed with life, more harmonious and fluid than ever before. The changes were small in scale, yet their impact was undeniable, a reflection of the human ability to observe, adapt, and improve systems through thoughtful action. "You have done more than I expected," Arelyn said. "Your presence has changed the way we think, the way we operate. Humans are not merely visitors. They can be partners, collaborators, and sources of insight that even our most advanced technology cannot replace. Ethan smiled. That is the strength of humans. We rely on observation, creativity, and adaptability. We do not seek domination, but understanding and collaboration. That is how we can contribute meaningfully, even in a world far more advanced than our own. Erilyn nodded, her gaze lingering on the human who had walked boldly into her palace without fear, without weapons, and without arrogance. He had turned a potential threat into an opportunity for understanding and progress. His species' ingenuity, courage, and adaptability had earned respect, not by force, but by demonstrating value in every action. "Then let us continue together," she said. "Humans have proven themselves capable of remarkable things. Your efforts here are only the beginning of what we can achieve in partnership." Ethan's response was quiet but confident. "I look forward to it. Humans excel when challenges are met with cooperation and understanding. Together, we can accomplish far more than either species could alone." The city below continued its rhythm, now subtly improved through human insight. Citizens moved with more ease, systems functioned more efficiently, and a sense of curiosity and innovation began to take root among the population. Soldiers and advisors recognized that humans brought not only intelligence, but a way of thinking that complemented even the most advanced civilization. Queen Arilyn realized that this human, who had entered her city willingly and faced every challenge with calm determination, had demonstrated the essence of what her empire could gain from collaboration with humanity. It was not brute force or technology that mattered most, but ingenuity, adaptability, and the ability to think creatively under pressure. As night fell, casting shadows and light in equal measure across the palace, Ethan stood beside the queen, observing the city he had helped improve. He had walked boldly into a foreign civilization, faced trials designed to test him, and demonstrated the capabilities of his species. His journey had shown that humans could influence, inspire, and enhance systems through intelligence, courage, and thoughtful action. Queen Arilyn turned to him, her expression reflecting respect, curiosity, and anticipation for the future. "Humans are extraordinary," she said softly. "I see it now. Not for power, not for dominance, but for the subtle brilliance of their minds. You have earned your place here, and perhaps much more than that, the possibility of shaping how we think, act, and grow together." Ethan nodded, aware of the significance of her words. It was not simply a victory for himself, but for humanity. The human spirit, curious, adaptable, and courageous, had earned recognition in a civilization far beyond their own. The potential for collaboration, understanding, and mutual growth was now real, and the first steps had been taken. Together, they looked out over the city, aware that this was only the beginning. Humans had proven that they could face challenges, navigate uncertainty, and inspire change not through force, but through intelligence, creativity, and courage. Queen Arilyn understood that she had witnessed something extraordinary: the power of humanity to turn unpredictability into opportunity, and to shape the future in ways that were both subtle and profound. Ethan had walked willingly into the palace, faced trials that tested every aspect of his ingenuity, and emerged not only successful but respected. And in doing so, he had demonstrated the truth of humanity itself, that the mind, courage, and creativity of humans could not be underestimated, no matter the world they entered, no matter the challenges they faced. The city below hummed with life, subtly transformed by the human who had dared to walk boldly into the heart of a foreign civilization. Queen Arilyn understood that the story of humanity was just beginning in her world, and that the potential for collaboration, innovation, and mutual growth was limitless. And for Ethan, the journey was only beginning, guided by the very traits that had brought him this far: observation, courage, and the quiet brilliance of a human mind.